Shalom Aleichem. I was asked to explain the Mitzvah of Shatnes. It's a pasuk in the Torah, a passage that says, Lo tilbash Shatnes, tzemer upishtim yachtov. Do not wear Shatnes, which is wool and linen together. Which means if there's wool and linen in one garment, then you can't wear it. Why? It's one of the chukim, which is one of the commandments that there is no reason given in the Torah. Such as kashrut, there's also no reason given. But this is our relationship with Hashem Yisborach, with the Almighty, is that we do things just because He commanded it. We don't ask why. He has reasons, but we don't ask why. And that's why He can relate to the Jewish people, because just like Hashem doesn't have reasons necessarily and doesn't tell you, so we do the same thing. We do the mitzvah of Shatnes and Kashrut, Paraduma, and various other mitzvot that we don't know the reason. But that's the greatness of the Jewish people. Now, back to the subject. I have here, I want to demonstrate to you a jacket that the lining has been removed. So I want to show you what is in a jacket, or what could be in a jacket. Not all jackets are the same, but here's various elements that are behind the lining. So therefore, anything which we find which has a lining, like a jacket or a coat, we want to know what's behind the lining. If it's a wool jacket such as this, and there's linen somewhere behind the lining, then that's Shatnes, and we can't wear it. Every jacket has, usually every jacket has some type of canvas that's built inside so that the jacket remains straight and doesn't get creased. It also has some padding at the shoulders usually, because everyone wants to look like a football player. Also, there's another important element, which is most important to us, is around the sleeves. There's a seam binder, we call it a tape, which makes the connection between the sleeve and the body, the fuselage of the jacket, a strong connection. And that's also another thing we have to be wary of. For those reasons, we check every jacket or coat, if it has a lining, to see what's underneath the lining, if there's no linen in a wool jacket, or if there's no wool in a linen jacket. The primary place where Shatnes occurs today is in the collar right underneath the felt. If you lift your jacket, you'll find, well, this is black, I hope you can read it, that you'll find a felt, and underneath the felt, very often, there's something put in there in order to keep it from creasing. Now, today's jackets, all coats, 95% of the Shatnes we find is right here. And that's usually found in the more expensive jackets. I can't mention any names, but if it's on a higher grade, better jackets, they have usually linen in the felt. Now, here's an example. This here particular name, I'll mention this name, is Burberry, which is a very expensive jacket to us. To some it's not so expensive. We were given this here jacket today. It had a piece of linen in the felt. So what we do is we take the linen out and we have it tailored with a replacement piece. The replacement piece is, I have here, is a type of rayon or cotton or something else which is going to replace the linen. It works just as well as the linen. The linen that they put in jackets is generally in the expensive one, as I commented, and it's traditional for better men's suits. That's 95% of the Shatnes we find today. Let me explain how we ascertain the information, how we find out whether the thing is Shatnes or not. we'll go back to this Burberry to verify that there's linen inside. What I do is I remove one of the threads from the collar, and we use a microscope to see if it's linen, because in fabrics or in fibers, every single type has its own personality. And linen looks different than wool, it looks different than cotton, it looks different than polyester, it looks different than viscose or bamboo, whatever. And then as soon as I separate into fibers, we do is we just put it here in the glass, and I can identify it by looking into the microscope, which is a 100 times larger than the fibers. Shatnes is in the thread, not necessarily in the fiber. So a thread which is made up of linen fibers, that produces a shatnes or a linen thread, which cannot be included in a wool garment. One linen thread in a wool garment is shatnes, or one wool thread in a linen garment. The following items let me delineate as far as what you should be concerned with. Mostly men's jackets and coats. And the more expensive ones, those are the ones that almost all of them are shatnes. The higher the price of, or the more expensive a jacket or coat is, the more the probability is that there will be shatnes. Okay, now, then there are other garments you don't have to worry about. For instance, undershirts is cotton or polyester and cotton. You don't have to worry about. Pants, even the wool pants, what they used to have is shatnes or linen in the waistband. For the last 30 years, waistbands are made totally of synthetics, except the two famous brands which are very expensive suits, Brioni and Oxford. Those waistbands have linen inside, and they have to be cleaned out, which is not too difficult a job, but you have to take apart part of the pants, but the tailors put it back together again. And you don't have to worry about shirts, you don't have to worry about pants, you don't have to worry about sweaters, you don't have to worry about pullovers, you don't have to worry about raincoats. All these things we don't find shatnes in. It's the jackets and the coats that's the primary culprits. Now let me go to women's items. Also, women's, it's one of the things we find is that you can rely on the label as far as the contents of the garment is concerned. So, if I buy a jacket that says 80% wool and 20% polyester, that's the fabric itself. A woman buys a dress that it says 100% wool, that's the fabric itself. But if there's embroidery added to it, that is not on the label. But we find that 99.9% of the labels are reliable as far as the fabric is concerned, and also even if there are some minor aberrations there, like if it's not 60% wool and 40% cotton, it may be 80% wool and 20% cotton, but that's not shatnes related. You don't have to worry about that. I want to explain something about embroidery, especially in women's clothing, because they have embroidery very often. I can't think of the word. If you're going to do a project of a sewing project, you should check, and you buy a fabric. Usually, the one who sells the fabric doesn't really know everything that's inside. Before you do this project, have the fabric checked for shatnes. That's very important. For instance, all these fabrics, they were bought locally, and each one of them had shatnes inside. These are tweeds, which is unique because there's usually several different colors and several different fabrics inside. But no one specified it. This one was sold as wool and polyester, but there was a linen threads in there to give it tenacity. The same thing with all of these. Okay, so that's important to check fabrics. Here's another example. This comes from a company that everything here is wool. It says 100% wool, but they don't explain that this here boot. I took off part of the boot. Anyway, this here boot is linen, so you can't wear it. You have to clean out this here particular element in order to make the garment kosher. And here's our prime example of what everyone should do. Our basic rule is when women buy clothing, especially jackets or coats, read the label. Many people overlook it. Here was a label that it says 50% wool and 50% linen. It was worn for 1 year before the woman read the label. Anyway, so it was eventually given to us to show an example of what people should not do. So that don't buy anything until you read the label, at least the fabric inside. This one has no embroidery, but the fabric itself had wool and linen, and you cannot wear it. This here is it's cotton and polyester suit, but the embroidery, the trim around it, was wool and linen, which made it invalid to wear. It was not kosher for wearing. Now here's another example of this was polyester and cotton and wool, but every horizontal white line is linen, and it was treated as embroidery. It was not stated on the label. And it's been a pleasure to speak to you, and we'll all be able to fulfill this very direct, straight, simple mitzvah of Mitzvah of Shatnes. Thank you, and when your suits are checked, wear them well. Todah.